Welcome to the shop. Steve here at SKS Props, and in today's video we're putting together a super simple Halloween wreath. Now this isn't like my normal projects. Normally I do a lot of foam smithing, and despite my foam clay pumpkins that I have on here, everything else is a found object from the craft store or the dollar store. So this is the kind of project where people can go out to these stores, find a whole bunch of different things that they like, and then put them together to make their own cohesive project. With this tutorial, I'm just going to kind of go through the steps that I took to put together my own wreath, and you guys can then utilize those in your own creation. We got a lot to do to put this wreath together, so let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I did was purchase some silicone molds off of Amazon. I'll have links in the description to the ones I'm using in this video. I'm going to use these molds in conjunction with my foam clay to make my own custom wreath embellishments. Now foam clay is air dry and it takes 24 hours to set up. That's why I'm doing this part of the project first. I take some of the foam clay and I press it firmly into the silicone mold. Now in this case I'm not trying to get all the air bubbles out because I want these pumpkins to have a cracked, weathered, worn texture, so I'm purposely trying to trap some of the air bubbles in there. Once the silicone mold had been filled, I take that to the freezer and I let it sit in there for about an hour and a half. This will make it easier to demold the clay pieces. So when it comes to your wreath, there's a couple of different things you can do. You could assemble one yourself or buy one pre-assembled. Especially this time of the year, usually you're going to find them down the Halloween aisle, already painted black. Or you could paint one black yourself. Now, why would you want to do that? That's because this wreath painted black in the Halloween aisle is $25. A couple aisles down, unpainted, $5. It's up to you. Now remember when you're spray painting to do it outside or in a well-ventilated area and wear your respirator. Next up, I'm going to be using this spooky string that I got from the dollar store. Now this fabric is really cool and it has an awesome texture to it. I've used it in several of my costumes. This fabric is draped around the wreath and you'll notice that it'll start to catch on places where the twigs are sticking out. This is exactly what you want because it'll allow you to stretch the fabric across the entire wreath. At this point I take some scissors and I start cutting into the fabric randomly. This will allow me to start pulling apart the fabric and give it that ratted, torn, weathered look. And because this wreath will be hanging, make sure to also hold it vertically while doing this. I'm going to add some LEDs to my wreath because why not? Lights make everything cooler. Now these pre-wired LEDs are easy to come by nowadays and carried in a bunch of different retail stores. These LEDs are wrapped around the wreath and then poked through to what I determined to be the front. The top of the battery pack is zip tied to one of the branches on the wreath and cloth is pulled over to cover it up. It's been long enough, so I go ahead and grab the mold out of the freezer and I start to demold the clay pieces. These pumpkins look great and turned out exactly how I wanted them to. For those of you that have not used my foam clay before, it is an air dry material, which means that after this mold comes out of the freezer, all the pieces are popped out and placed onto some non-stick foil. Now they're going to need to rest here for about 24 to 48 hours, and in that time the moisture will start to wick out of them. At this point right now they're actually sweating because they're right out of the freezer. You don't want to mess with them at this point because you can obscure your details. After about an hour, these will start to skin over, and after 24 hours we can handle them. At that point, we can clean them up and even go ahead and attach them to the wreath. They'll still be squishy. After a month though, these pumpkins will be rock hard. After about 12 hours, the pumpkins had skinned over and started to firm up, but they're still squishy. So I went ahead and I took an X-Acto knife and I sliced off the back. This will give a nice even surface for the hot glue to attach to the wreath. Now when this is cut off, it's pretty wet on the inside of it, so I took little foam pieces and I put all the pumpkins up at an angle so the air could still get underneath to dry. They've set up enough that I can add an acrylic wash to them, and to do that I'm using Liquitex Heavy Body Mars Black. This paint is generously applied all over the piece, and then using a wet paper towel I wipe away a lot of the excess. You can see what a difference it makes between the painted and unpainted. This application is repeated for all of the pumpkins and a hairdryer is used to speed up the process. I feel the wreath will look a little too monochromatic if I just left them gray, so I use some Liquitex Heavy Body Cadmium Orange as my highlight layer. This paint is dry brushed over the surface, not fully covering, so it gives it that worn, weathered look. Once the paint is dry, it's time to place the pumpkins, and I pick spots on the wreath that look a little more bare. My Surebond high-temp cordless hot glue gun is used to secure these into place. Now my wreath is not going to be outside, so hot glue is fine for this application. To give this project a little more color and texture, I'm going to be using some orange tulle to wrap around the wreath. The tulle is tied off and then wrapped around the entire wreath a couple of times. To give this wreath a little more character, I left room at the top for a spider and some spider webs that I picked up from the dollar store. I take some time to spread apart the web to make sure that I've got a good coverage on the front and the back of this wreath. After the web is complete, I hot glue the spider to the top and I press his legs down into the twigs.
So you can see the basic steps that I took to make my own Halloween wreath. Now the great thing about this is that you guys can utilize all or none of the techniques that I showed you to make your own creation. One thing that I really enjoyed was making the foam clay pumpkins. It gives it a custom look that, you can't really just go and pick this up anywhere. You're making it your own. And if you guys are building any of my builds or you're making your own wreath, be sure to tag me at SKS Props on Twitter and Instagram because I want to see your creation. And if you guys are enjoying these videos, go ahead and give them a thumbs up, share them with your friends and family. And until next time, thanks for stopping by.